can we switch from providing value with everything that we're working on to actually generating income from your talents? So welcome, thanks for joining us for part 3 of our Courageous Leaders series on unlocking your creativity. Today we're talking about nurturing. So again, we have me and Luke Grace, so thanks for joining me. And we're going to be talking about nurturing your business, your talents, your ideas. And in general, this tends to be the place that people get stuck. So we want to start kind of thinking about where we're getting stuck, how we're getting stuck, and what we actually need to focus on to take our business to that next stage. How are you today, Luke?
Doing really, really well. I think this is an interesting one. There's various different mindset things that come into it, which is a lot of what I work with. And I know that a lot of it is also systems based, which is where you absolutely excel. I think a lot of people, they think this is everything. When they look at an entrepreneur, when they look at somebody who has a business, this what occurs in the nurturing phase, they just think is what happens. But it's actually the 2 phases before which we spoke about, which really give this clarity. And to be honest, it's a phase that I'm also really exploring myself constantly. As you said, it can be the most challenging. I definitely find it that way. So really looking forward to this conversation.
Great. Yeah, so this is part 3. So we've already gone over how you can discover your talents and start looking at exploring what you are good at and what you want to pursue. And then we went into propelling, which was like the action base. So it's turning those ideas into actionable steps. And now we're kind of in what I would call summer. So we're starting to nurture and grow and let those ideas properly form, come to life. Another way I think about it is, so we've got that value and we're turning the value and what we've invested in our business into the tipping point of actually starting to ask for money. So everything's there, the offer is there, and it's about starting to invite people in to work with us and to give us feedback.
Absolutely. I think as well, it's a transition point. You know, you talk about it being a little bit like summer. I like the word nurturing because I work with the masculine and feminine archetype when I'm working within what people are going through. The mother archetype is very much the nurturer. It's the we are, it's the community, it's the communication, collaboration, rather than the I am and the leader and the authority on the other side. But it's funny, in the last one we spoke about, get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's almost like now it's a deeper stage of, with that place that you're now comfortable, truly allowing yourself to be comfortable as well. I know a lot of people, when they come into this stage, they're still holding on to a lot of stress, right? I need to go, I need to hustle, I need to grind. These are all very kind of like popular words and phrases to use. But in actual fact, there's a point where you have to bring some ease in to allow that client to come to you, ultimately that money to come to you, and this is that phase to really be able to relax. So I love that term nurturing for that reason, because it's something that people, they don't really see or understand. And that tension and anxiety that they have keeps the thing that they want often at bay. That needy attachment that we get during this point of, okay, I've got my idea, I've found what it is within me, and I've been putting the work together. Okay, I'm going to put it out there. Who's going to buy? Who's going to buy? Who's going to buy? If you imagine walking through a market and you're getting hassled by every single person that's got a market stall to buy their stuff, which they do to a degree anyway. If it's too much, it becomes repulsive, right? You're just like, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to go somewhere else. And that's what I see a lot of entrepreneurs doing at this point, hassling in a way which is just too much. So that nurturing, that ease, that ability to come from that place of the mother archetype that we are and all the rest of it is so key, so key.
Yeah, I think it's also, so the word ease I really like, and I also like the word invitation. So a lot of the time we're projecting, we're putting things out, like you said, there's that kind of market feel of like, buy, I've got this thing, you need it. Or this is what I've created. And we actually don't know how to switch the emphasis to being about what they want, what the customer wants. And then actually even saying to them, do you want to work with me? Or would you like to buy my product? Do you want to listen to my piece of music? Whatever it is that you're selling. So I feel like there needs to be that kind of switch. It's got to stop being about you. So up until this point, it kind of has been about you. It's about discovering. It's about you're responsible for getting your business to where it needs to be. But now it's that I think is when we say tipping point for me, what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. That thing that we spoke about in the beginning, which is, you know, it's for you, but you have to make it about somebody else. This is the point where making it about somebody else really comes into it. It's also really interesting. I find a lot of people, when it comes to the marketing stage, you know, marketing is classically based on, you are not enough, you need this. So you're not enough, buy a Mercedes, right? Which for a lot of people who are wanting to, let's say they're getting into some form of coaching, some form of supporting people, it feels incredibly manipulative. You know, it's very easy to cut somebody down. It's very easy to knock their self-confidence. And then you come along and offer to be the person that can kind of sort that out. And for a lot of people who I think are just looking to get into the coaching world or that type of service industry at the moment, and to be honest, anytime you're working with somebody and you're giving them your service, it is like that. I think that we're going to see a wave of people actually who are far more authentic. I just think with what's going on at the moment, in terms of loads of things, I think inauthenticity is causing people a lot of, they're questioning a lot. Right? The problem is people who are authentic, they have trouble then selling. They actually have trouble, you know, I think we were talking about this, there's this phrase which is fake it before you make it, right? Which to somebody who's trying to be authentic is just like a dagger to the heart. It's like, ugh, no, I don't like that. But it's kind of more the phrase which is, you know, claim what you want to be and then be it. You know, it's an internal thing that drives the action. Okay, but it's really, really heartfelt, and that's huge. And then in terms of the marketing itself and the way that you put things out there, you know, it's not you are not enough, buy a Mercedes. It's you're enough, by the way. Would you be interested in this? You know, which doesn't have that kind of classic ring that we're used to, sort of in our brain that gets us to buy things and what have you. It takes a little. So I find it's a little bit of a slower burn in terms of kind of how it picks things up and all the rest of it, but ultimately feels so much better. And I end up bringing in those clients, which is so much more well suited to me. Therefore, they get better results. I get far more fulfillment out of what I'm doing. And like I say, you can't get that without ease, you know, because the panicky way is to be like, oh, you're not enough. You need my service. Okay, to kind of try and force them. Most people aren't even really manipulative enough to do that. They're just like, buy my service, without even making somebody feel not enough. The sweet spot is letting the person know that you work with, look, you're enough, you've got this. But yeah, I think you'd really benefit from this as well. Yeah,
I agree. And it's also about finding like the ideal people that you want to work with. So I feel like none of us, we're never going to be accessible or the right fit for everybody. So you can try to project yourself as available to everybody, but by doing that, no one really will understand how they can connect with you. So there are going to be people who want to work with a money wellness coach, but they like a kind of more hard down the line, practical, analytical approach. And then there's going to be people who are more creative and are going to want that approach from someone who's had experience with creative energy. So when I'm putting my energy out, for example, I'm not trying to appeal to everybody. I'm speaking to the people that I want to work with in the hope that they will hear the message and they'll hear it the way I need them to, and then they'll be the ones that I'm attracting. So it's not it's also kind of for me, and that kind of goes back to what you were saying too. So the people I want to work with, I don't want to work with everybody. There's a specific type of personality that works and resonates well with me, and they're the ones that I want to attract. So by being authentic and by being myself, I'm going to then attract people who are like-minded, who are going to kind of fit as my ideal market.
100%. I think the best example that I can think of with this, but it's so funny, you're mentioning all of these things and all the pitfalls that it kind of results in. And all I can think of is my time in clinic in London, where we kind of first met, you know, and me trying to help everybody and me really struggling to put value in what I did and me being desperate to get people in. And it absolutely crushed me. And like, it made me sick ultimately. You know, these are mistakes that I've made and that I've definitely learned from and continuing to learn from as I do kind of new things and keep trying. But it's understanding that as you're trying, as you do something that's different, you know, you're going to get some more feedback. Okay. And it might not be exactly what you want, you know, which then makes people think that they failed because they have this emotional response to, oh, that's not the client that I wanted. That's not the thing that I wanted. But in actual fact, it's like, okay, it's not the client that I wanted. So what do I now need to put out? You know, the best analogy, what I was going to say when you were talking about you being authentic to yourself is, I think it's dating. There's that classic thing, you meet somebody, you start dating. So often people put on like a facade, that person that they believe that person wants them to be. And it's fine for like a certain period of time. And then it's really not okay, because it takes so much effort to be that thing, and it feels so inauthentic. And then you end up building a relationship that really doesn't fit for you. And then the worst thing is if the other person's doing the same thing as well. And it kind of all comes to a head where it's like, this isn't working. Why isn't it working? And then often blame comes out. Oh, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. And these all can be, as much as there's deep holes that you can get stuck in, no matter how big the problem is, often the solution is very simple. And the solution really is that authenticity, putting yourself out there with ease, and coming from a place of for you, but about them, referring back to one of the first things we were talking about.
And authenticity as well is interesting, because I know you're saying some of the struggles, and I know I've struggled with this too. It's like being so authentic of you and your journey, and like true to yourself and how you're presenting yourself. But also at one point, both of us were on the journey too. So there would have been a point where you want to fit into you want to create the space that you're then going to naturally fit into, but in a way that makes it look like you already are in that space.
Yeah.
That's how I see
Yeah, definitely. And that's where, for me as well, if I'm too attached on the person that I'm going to become, then it starts to become inauthentic, because I start to navigate a path to a destination that I've logically decided on, which I don't then find myself in. I find that while being authentic, there's only so far that I can plan ahead, because I have to allow flexibility as I kind of evolve and develop. It's almost like as you take a step, the path's not, you can't see the path in front of you. It's not there. As you take the step, it appears, but that action of taking a step could seem to be inauthentic because there's nothing there. So what are you doing? Okay. But you have to make that movement. You have to put that thing out there. And then, like I say, see the feedback that you get and work from that. It's a conversation. Often when I talk to a lot of my clients, I like the analogy of, it's a little bit like improv, right? It's a conversation with you and the world around you. So I'm like, and then Luke decides to be a transformational coach. And the universe goes, and then he finds this amazing client. And then I go, and then I get on the call and have this call with this client and take them through this system and make the sell. And the universe goes, and then that completely and utterly turns that client away. And they're not interested whatsoever. And they leave. And then I reassess and I do something different. When I see it as that playful interaction, it makes things so much easier during this phase to, we spoke about being able to propel, get things done and start to create, discover internal. Propel, I feel, is like it going from that internal place to me creating it in the space that is around me. So I'm really grounded in it, in what I'm doing. I'll start whispering it to friends, mentioning it to people. But this nurturing phase, it's going into that place of ease and putting it outside of you. And as you give and as you share and as you serve in whatever way that is, that's really when you get the chance to receive. But people are so wrapped up in receiving, they believe that they're in a world of give and take. So they'll give a bit of something and then they want to take something back. I think when you bring in that ease, it becomes a world of give, receive, share, and grow. And as that happens, that's where the magic is. It really is. And that's where every single day, and you'll know this from, you'll meet somebody at a coffee shop, you have a conversation, you suddenly like, there's an idea, there's an ability to go on, not anymore, but talk at a meetup or whatever it may be. And it kind of opens up as it starts to become playful.
Yeah. So with the feedback thing, so when you say feedback, to me there's kind of two parts of feedback that I'm thinking of. One is actually directly from my clients or customers, so it's like talking to them, finding out what they want, and then being able to provide what they want. And then the other is either within a team dynamic or with an accountability partner or someone that you can collaborate with that's going to help you get where you need to be, a mentor. So it's asking for feedback. So it's inviting people to say what they think, but not necessarily in a would you buy this product kind of way. But it's like putting your messaging out there, seeing what's working and what's not working, and then kind of evaluating and adjusting from there. So collaboration is important, because if it's all in our head, so the first two phases, discovery, propel, they're all about you. So we've, as you said, you're internal for discovery, then you come out for propel, you're like putting it out on paper or within your own bubble, and then now we're projecting it out into the world and seeing how it lands. Which can be a really intimidating place. I know for a long time I didn't want to put anything out on my own social media, even though I was coaching in the background, because I was too scared of what, to be honest, people in my own network might think, and the judgment that may come from that. But if you don't put yourself out there at all, then nobody's going to know about you, and you can't actually reach any new people.
Yeah, 100%. That thing you're talking about putting yourself out there, building a social net. I'm still struggling with that. That's something that I do find difficult. I think, and I've been thinking about why this phase is so difficult, and or certainly it's challenging, let's say, not difficult, but challenging for myself. And we've spoken about that concept of authenticity. To be totally blunt, for me in this phase, this is where you find out where you're lying to yourself. Let me just unpack that for a second, okay? Because that might seem very harsh, you're lying to yourself. But at this moment, in that first phase where it's within you, where you're bringing out into this group here, or within yourself, you can then see it, and then you start to put it out. The reason why feedback often feels harsh to people, and often the reason why people get triggered, is you don't get triggered unless you're loaded, right? There's going to be some form of truth within what's being said, and that form of truth within what's being said is highlighting a lie within you, right? And the lie within you feels so harsh when you're going for authenticity. But in actual fact, if you think of that mother archetype, I've got a daughter, and there's times where I'm definitely very authoritarian. I don't even like that word. Ugh. There's times where I definitely have to put boundaries in, right? Particularly as she's gone from being 3 to 4, and she's now coming up on 6. There's, after 3 and 4, there's a change in the dynamic of what she's wanting to discover about herself within the world that she has around her. And there's definitely a point of me pointing out when she's doing something which is going to be destructive going forward in her life, right? And then there's other times where I'm far more nurturing about that, if you were the mother archetype. And really I'm highlighting, as it were, like things that are going to be destructive, things that I can really see, while giving her as much freedom as possible, ultimately are going to result in a bad life, let's say, okay? But she in that moment is absolutely swearing blind that if she's allowed that thing, her life will be better. And actually I'm turning around and basically going, you're lying to yourself. Just trust me on this one. That's a lie, yeah? And I think that's the thing. I think this phase we get to discover where we're lying to ourselves. And that's kind of, it's a sharp realization, right? That can cut somewhat. But when you think of it with ease, when you think of it with nurturing, it's the difference between somebody putting you down and criticizing in a way that's verging on bullying, and actually a friend coming up to you and saying, hey, I've noticed you've been doing this thing. Like, are you okay? It just doesn't seem like you. And that's why this phase is nurturing. That's why this phase is ease. This is why you get rid of that desperation, because it allows that feedback to come in, and actually you start to work with it and co-create in a way that means ultimately you are you on the other side of it. You have been, the phrase mothered now often involves people being smothered, but actually the true definition of like a mother, a nurturer, is, just getting involved enough to allow that person to realize their greatness. And that's what happens in this point. It's funny, you were saying you think of it within accountability groups and with your clients. I think of it within myself and the feedback I almost get from the universe around me. Not wanting to sound too woo-woo. But so when you think of all that feedback that you're constantly getting, it's just a nurturing way to go, oh, you have this feeling outside you that you've discovered. Okay, you've started to put some creation into it. Now let's really make this work for you as you make it about others.
Love that. And I think, so moving on in the way of ease, I think, so we've spoken a lot about kind of the internal things. So now kind of to move on to the tools side of things, if that's all right.
This is what you know. So
yeah, so there are a few pieces that I think really resonate for me in this area. The first is around, we kind of spoke a little bit about productivity and procrastination last session with propelling, but now kind of looking at, so a lot of the time we get into this rut of feeling like we have to be doing things all the time to get things done. And I believe that one result of that feeling of procrastination that we feel we've had through a day, or not having been productive enough, comes because we're filling up our days with the wrong tasks. So we think we have to have this huge to-do list, and we just, all we have to do is sit down and go through it all, tick it all off. But if you haven't been mindful of the activities that you need to actually achieve in order to drive your business forward or your idea forward, then you're going to consistently feel that you haven't been productive. So I'm a perfectionist by nature. So I know that this is something I've fallen into in the past, is like, all I have to do is finish these 10, 20 tasks today. And by the end of the day, I'll be satisfied because they're all done. One, I very rarely actually achieve all of the things. But two, sometimes they're just complete nonsensical tasks for the sake of having tasks and being productive. I don't know if you felt this as well, Luke. But
man. So I can tell you, like I said, I've got a daughter, I've got a young daughter, and my wife, obviously with everything that's going on COVID, very much focused on homeschool, things like this at the moment. And I will be in front of my computer, I'll be working, I'll get on the whiteboard, do all this creative stuff, and I'll feel like I've had an amazing day. And my wife has this ability to just go, oh, cool. Like, how was your day? Like, what did you get up to? And if I can even feel like a slight bit of like, leave me alone, I'm doing my own thing, then I know I'm lying to myself. I haven't been that productive. But the simple question it always comes down to is, when you step back at the end of the day, right, have I really, genuinely, honestly increased my ability to serve? So for me, in the work that I do, my ability to serve in a meaningful way. And also, because that's the giving, have I actually increased my ability to receive? Okay, and create income for ultimately myself and my family, to then get on to even the share and the grow. And those two very simple questions often bring up certain feelings at the end of the day, when I've been very busy doing nothing. And even though I could go, oh, look, this is what I've made. At this stage, it's not just about, saying, oh, this is what I've done. It now needs to have it needs to be very clear that it's going to that next step, that next best step. And I've spent so much time working hard, not moving anywhere.
I have a little tip for that, actually. What I say is, just with your daily scheduling, like, I don't want to call it the rule of 3, because we have the rule of 6 in the UK, which is around COVID. But it's like, so take your list and put down 3 things that are your absolute must-dos. But when you've written them down, actually reflect back on whether they're going to drive forward making money, or your ability to network, connect with some more people, so that you can get feedback. So if they don't serve any purpose in actually generating income or bringing something back to you, then it's not probably a priority, unless you have like a deadline for filing your taxes or something like that. So if it doesn't have a specific purpose to drive stuff forward, leave it off the list until a later date. But then also choose another 3 activities that are kind of what I call quick wins. So things that are going to give you that satisfaction that you do get on the days where you have that big to-do list. So it might be calling the bank, or I don't know, making a spreadsheet that you need to put some information in. As long as it's like something that's going to give you quick satisfaction, like no more than 10, 15 minutes to do in total, then you'll feel that satisfaction, and the endorphins actually start to race when you've completed them, because there is something to ticking something off a list. It does give you that feeling of satisfaction. And then I also say, because I'm all about balance and sustainability, is have 3 things as well that are your personal to-dos that are going to fuel you to get you through that day, whether that's cooking a nice meal, whether it's putting on a load of washing, whatever it is. 3 things that, again, aren't going to take you all day, but will make you feel like you've been nurtured through the day.
Absolutely. I think that was something we spoke about during the Discover phase, making sure that there was a couple of things that you were doing at that point that were working for you, whether that was going to the gym or what have you. But this is where it becomes even more important. Okay, you started to at least think a little bit about your lifestyle that you want during that point where you're kind of creating and grinding, for want of a better word, and really hustling. And now, like you say, you want to make it truly sustainable. And I love that idea of really prioritizing those three things. I'm going to use that myself. So, you know, maybe even do an easy task, the more challenging tasks, and then do something for me, and then repeat. So I'm getting the endorphin off the first one, I'm getting the second one done, and then as a reward, I get that thing for myself on the third one. Yeah, I like that. It's very good.
Awesome.
Being
And then
your need for like gratification is very important.
Very, very important. And then on top of that, so there's only so much we can physically do ourselves within the day. So with nurture and expanding your ability to collaborate, this also to me falls into the idea of two areas: automation and outsourcing. So these are words that are being used a lot nowadays as well, but essentially all it means is having stuff set up so that you don't have to be doing everything yourself, because it's not possible. Like if you look at how most businesses are run, it isn't just one person doing everything. And kind of the current surge of solopreneurs, or like people who are running businesses, is all the pressure, all the responsibility, all the jobs are on one person. And your skill may be that you're a gardener. You might not be a social media expert or marketing expert or sales executive or whatever. And you're trying to do all of those front end things as well as actually the craft that you're good at. So to an extent, there is going to be some of that that's going to be necessary to drive a business forward. But there will be a point where you can actually start looking at how you can lessen your workload and keep that sustainability throughout so that you're not going to burn out. So with automation, for example, there are ways that you can kind of get yourself around those struggles. So for me, I struggle with social media. It might not look like it because I do have a lot of content that goes out and it's quite full, but I did have to come up with a system so that wasn't going to become a daily struggle. So for example, I look at my content ideas once a month. So I come up with all of the concepts that I want to talk about, write it all down, come up with all of the design and images in one day, and then just have that all scheduled ahead of time. And then I don't have to think about social media other than the reactive replying. But that to me took so much pressure off me to every day be trying to create in that kind of space. Now I have a team. I'm really lucky. I've got a team that helps me with that stuff. But at the start, there are ways that you can kind of alleviate pressures in areas that are harder for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and I know this from clinics that I've had in the past, you know, initially you think you're a business owner, you know, the classic, people always say, no, you just own your job. And then there becomes a point where it gets to the point where you're like, okay, now I own a business. And I think that automation and outsourcing is such a big part of that. I can't remember where I read it, but I remember listening to a reporter who was talking to a CEO of a very big company and asked the CEO, you know, what's your job? And he's like, my job is to not take on anybody else's job. And the guy was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, there's 500 people in this company. I take on 1% of everybody else's job. I've got no time to do anything. So my job is to truly oversee and manage. And I think that's something that, you know, we have all these layers of workers within ourselves. You've got the CEO at the top, you've got the board of execs, and then you've got the workers. Then that CEO at the top, it's a difficult space to get into. And automation is a key part of it. A really key part of it. Yeah, and I know, having watched what you've gone through as you built stuff, how big that has been for you. And it's inspiring, I've got to say. It's really good because it definitely allows that nurturing element to come forward.
Yeah, it's also being, the perfectionism in me has been challenged by that, because it's control. You've got to allow somebody else to come in and do it their way as well, not just how you want it or to a certain standard that you have, but also allow for their way, which again goes into collaboration. And I feel that that's an important part of any team dynamic. It's, you're not the dictator who's laying down. It depends what type of role you want to set up. But for me, I don't want to dictate and say, this is exactly what I want, how I want it done. I want feedback. I want it to feel collaborative, because I feel that there's so much more power in 5 brains working together than one telling 4 others what to do.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because with each of these 3 phases that we've done, the discover, the propel, the nurture, you know, there's an opportunity. There's 2 sides of every coin, right? In the discover, there's, I guess, apathy, like not having a clue what's going on, but we've spoken to the discover. In the propel, there's also the, I don't know what you'd call it, non-movement phase, right? Where nothing happens and nothing is created. And in the nurturing phase, this is where you have the option of it being nurturing or it actually swamping you and taking you down, and it's a choice. It's completely a choice, and a big part of it being nurturing, having that time, having that space, at these key things that you've spoken about, the outsourcing, which I can't say enough for, and also making sure it works with your life. Yeah, it's a choice at every single one of these phases, and it can either be liberating or the opposite. So it's about keeping it liberating, and it's just simple choices that make that difference.
Totally. Cool. So where do we go next from here, Luke? So once we've finished, well, not finished, it's an ongoing process, but once we've nurtured, what are we going to be talking about next session?
The next bit is the celebration, and this is such a key phase, oh man, it's huge. And it's the bit that so many people miss out on, because once you're on that treadmill of trying to create, trying to do more, okay, you're just like, right, I've got this idea, this is what I'm going to do, get it out there, done. I've got this idea, repeat. And eventually, because you're not actually allowing yourself to receive from that, not just say financially, and hopefully you are bringing in some finance, because unfortunately it's not optional, right? You do need that, but also giving yourself that space to receive some energy back in, taking that time to bask in the awesomeness of whatever it is that you've created, right? And really allow yourself to feel that. It's a beautiful, beautiful phase that when you realize you have to do it and you learn how to kind of do it well, which isn't difficult, it makes everything else so much easier. It makes the next round so much easier. Celebrating is amazing. Really.
Celebration. I think there's also a bit of evaluation in there too, because you're celebrating, you're reaping the rewards of everything that you've created, that then you're also on the side evaluating what has gone wrong, what's gone right, what you want to repeat, what you don't want to repeat. So if you don't actually sit down and celebrate, then you haven't allowed to see the good parts as well as the bits that were challenging, to even be able to get yourself back to the discovery phase of whatever's next.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know you like cycles. I think you talk about cycles during the year. I know you've done something when it comes to the woman's cycle. When I talk to my clients, I talk a lot about breathing. You take out any one of those points of that cycle and it falls apart, and it really is that fundamental. I'm really looking forward to going into that with you. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So Luke, what can people do if they're currently in the nurture phase and they need a little push? How can you help them? I know
as I've said with all the other ones, please get in touch. I have been having some really interesting questions come forward. I love to be able to talk about this stuff, whether it's you just want to get in touch on Facebook, whether you want to organize a consultation call, whatever it is, reach out. You'd be amazed how quickly a small conversation can change a lot. Trajectories aren't changed 90 degrees at a time. It's 1 degree at a time, to really, really change where you're going. And please don't hesitate, reach out.
Yes, agreed. And especially if you're looking at from a system point of view, how can you automate? What do you outsource? That's the first step. It's not just give someone a pile of work. It's actually figuring out what you want to be responsible for and what other people can help you with. If they're the kind of questions you have at this stage, then you can reach out to me on any of my social channels, which are all Get Comfy with Money. It's all kind of centered around money, but ultimately I want to help you grow your businesses as well. So especially if you're in the creative sector and these are the challenges you're facing, then please get in touch with me.
Perfect.
Awesome. Looking forward to the next one. Thanks again, Luke.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.